Hey, welcome. Let me show you how to do procedural generation in GDevelop. We're going to be making this sort of 2D Minecraft game, and I'll be explaining things as we go along so that this intro doesn't get way too long. But first of all, what do I mean by procedural generation? I mean the proper kind, as in what Minecraft, Terraria, Spelunky, those kinds of game uses. As in every time you start the game will generate a completely different world for you, right? So that's what we're going to be making. So where do you start with all of this? First of all, we open a project. This project has literally nothing. All right, it has one player, and my player has just these behaviors, right? So we can move along and see what it is we're doing. It's a top-down behavior and a smooth camera, and that's about it, right? Uh, so now we need to start by adding an extension. Well, two actually. So we're going to go onto our extensions, press the plus, and now we're going to look up noise. And here's the thing about GDevelop. What makes this engine so great is that every time you think there's something that's really high concept or really difficult to do, most likely someone already made an extension or a guide on how to approach it or how to make your life way easier. And in this case, it's going to be the noise generator. Because to do procedural generation, we need something called noise. We can't just use random values. We need to use specific, like these smooth random values, like not random between 1 and 100 that just goes to any kind of number. It needs to go to like 1 to 6 and then down to 5 and then up to 7. It needs to have this like smooth curve, right, to make this whole thing work, because otherwise you just have this random world with things all over the place, and you don't want that. You want to have randomness, but you want to have order, and that's what noise does. It's this thing called Perlin noise or simplex noise. And in this case, we're using this sort of open source version of Simplex. Anyways, the point is, these guys have already made the stuff that you need to put into your game to generate this value, right? So you're going to find the noise extension and you're going to hit install in project down below. Once you're done, we're going to go up here and what is it called? Extended math. There you go. Extended math support. This is something else we're going to need. Going to get that extension and install in the project. I know my webcam is probably in the way, but you know, it's a blue button, it just says install. You just click that, right? Once you're done, we close this. So this first part is going to be basically following along the guide on a wiki on how to generate how to do procedural generation, right? On the GDevelop wiki, there's already a guide on how to do it. We're just going to be altering it to create the game out of it, right? They teach you how to do it. I'm going to teach you how to modify it into an actual game, right? So if you want to follow that along instead, I'm going to leave it in the description. Also, if you enjoy this stuff, you know, leave a like, subscribe, all that jazz. It really helps the channel. The channel's really small. Any support is welcome. Right. So we have the extensions. Now we're going to go here to our objects, and we're going to create one object to begin with, I think. All right, we're going to hit sprite. And we're just going to call this guy tile. Let me zoom in. My eyes, if this is your first video, my eyes are detrimentally bad, right? We call this tile. We're going to create with Piskel. And because I use a black background, I'm going to use the color red, right? It's going to be like just regular red. And be sure of the size. Yeah, see, 64 by 64. We're going to want I mean, we could use 64 by 64. Yeah, it'll be bigger. No, this is fine. Let's go. 64 by 64. Cool. So let's make tiles 64 by 64. This is important. When it comes to measures, you want to have the same measures, right? You're generating a world, right? So you can't just throw random cubes at it, right? With different dimensions, right? They all need to be the same dimensions. If you ever played Minecraft, right? You're looking around and you see that all the cubes, all the tiles have the exact same dimensions. So you need to keep that in mind every time you create a new tile or whatever to put into your game. They need to have the same kind of dimensions, right? That's very important. So we have a tile. And I think that's all we need for now, right? So now we're going to go on to our events. I have a couple of events here for reference, just so I don't have to constantly pause the video and go look it up, because, I don't know all of this stuff by heart. Let's copy paste this. This is an event group. Let's call this procedural generation. I'm gonna copy one of these again. I'm gonna paste there. And what are we gonna call this one? Let's call this world generation. World generation. All right. Now I'm gonna select this group. I'm gonna Shift D, create a sub event, and we're gonna do at the beginning of the scene. At the beginning of the scene. Cool. Press OK. I'm gonna lean back so I can see better. And we're gonna add the action. Change scene number variable. You could just type number variable, scene, whatever. It just needs to be a scene variable, and it needs to be a number variable, right? So change number variable. And you can see underneath on the tooltip, it says general variable scene. That's the one we want, right? The variable, we're going to call it x. This is simple x. And we're going to set it to 1. And now, there we go. We're going to select this variable, and we're going to copy paste it. So Control C? I forget. I know where to put my fingers. I just forget the keys. Yeah, Control C, Control V. There we go. We're going to copy paste it and then change the X to a Y. Right? So now we have these two variables. We have X and Y. And these are the variables we're going to add up to keep generating the blocks. So think of these as your coordinates, right? So x1, y1, it's going to be the first block. So x2, y1 is going to be the block next to it, right? We're going to make an automated system or an algorithm that's going to generate this for us and create the blocks as it goes along, right? But for your understanding, these two values, these are the grid coordinates, right? Now we're going to copy paste again. And we're going to change this one to size X. And we're going to set it to, let's say 20. And then we're going to copy paste again. And we're going to change the size X to size Y. And it could be 20 as well. Why do you do that? I don't know. It just GDevelop things. These two are how long your rows are. So size X 20 means that there's going to be 20 blocks in a row, right? And then size y, 20, that means there's going to be 20 blocks in a row coming down, right? Or up, right? Because x is left and right, y is up and down. So this is going to be a 20 by 20 world, right? So it's going to be 20 blocks by 20 blocks. You can do the math and see what 20 times 20 is. 400, right? So it's going to be 400 blocks we're going to generate with this. If you want your world to be bigger, you change these values, right? I'll show you that in a minute. So now, let's make another event. And we're going to do scene number variable. Scene number variable. Variable x. If it's greater than 0, if it's greater than 0, that's okay. And then we're going to copy paste. And we're going to do the same thing if y, we're going to change the x for a y. Right. So if y is greater than 0, then we're going to create object. And I kind of already goofed. Give me a second. All right, we're going to create object. Okay. We're going to leave that there. I forgot. We need one more tile. I knew there was something missing. We can just duplicate this one. And we're going to call this one origin. Origin. Let's double click it. Let's give it a different color just because. Let's open Piskel. And since we made a dupe out of this one, we can't overwrite. So let's click new there. And then we change the color. Because if you do overwrite on a duplicated item, you're going to change the original item as well. And we don't want that, because then what's the point? It wouldn't. The other one would be red. Let's grab the paint bucket. Let's change this to orange. Let's hit save. And press apply. See? Since we pressed new, it created a new sprite for us. Now I'm going to grab it. And I'm going to place it in the corner of my world. Why are you being weird? There we go. There's some like loose things here in my mic. Is like tickling my beard. Yeah. So that's our origin point. It's right there. That's where the world is going to be created from. So now let's go back to our events. And let's do create. Actually, I'm going to open this up just so you can see better. Object, create tile. I'm going to select our tile. At the x position of origin, dot x plus 64. This is the size of our blocks. So if you're making 32 blocks, 32 by 32 blocks, you put 32 here. But our blocks are 64 wide, or tiles, so we put 64 here. Times, oh my god, I need to get rid of this because this is like tickling me and it's annoying me. Right, times variable, open, x, close. Just like that. So it's going to generate a block at the origin block, at the x position, plus 64 times that x variable. So right at the start, the x variable is 1, right? So it's going to be 64 times 1, 64. When we add it up to 2, it's going to be 128. So it's going to be on the position next to it, and then next to it, and then next to it, and next to it, right? Do you get it? I hope so, because sometimes I suck at explaining this. So I'm going to copy this whole thing, and I'm going to paste it to the Y, and we're going to leave it exactly as it is, but we're going to change the X's for Y's. So change the big X for big Y, and the little x for a little y. On the base layer, everything else is fine. I'm going to press OK. And then, so if you preview right now, it's just going to generate one single block. Oh no, it's going to generate forever. Wait, why is it adding more? I didn't put oh no, I did. Wait, there you go. The for reference was working. I need to disable that. Right, there we go. Sorry, why the heck is that working? But as you can tell, we already generated a single block. And the X position of the origin, it's right there in the corner. So if you think that that's 0 plus 64, which is that one. And the origin point of our tiles is also there in the corner. So that's where the tile gets generated from. So if you think 64, 0, that's 64. That's why it's there. If it was 128, it'd be there. Right? Anyways, let's move along. So now let's create more blocks. And to do that, we're going to grab this X variable. We're going to copy it. I'm going to paste. I'm going to drag it under. Remember, we need to create first, and then we change this. We're going to change the X variable. Instead of set, we're going to change to add. Right? So just like that, we're going to see that we're going to generate forever and ever and ever a line of blocks. All right, cool. Next up. Next up is we're going to make a sub event. And we're going to check that if X, so let's copy paste the X one. Let's drag onto there. And if X is greater than, now here on the 0, we're going to change for our size variable. So type in variable open size X and then close. Right? So if the X is greater than 20, right? So if you already generated 20 blocks, then we're gonna copy paste this X. Gonna put it down there. And we're gonna set this back to 1. Set to 1. So we're gonna reset it. And now we're gonna copy paste. And we're gonna change the X for a Y, one of them. And on the Y one, we're gonna add 1. Okay? So we got to 20. We reset the X. So we told it go back to the first row. But then we added 1 to the Y, so now it's going to be a row underneath, right? So now every time it gets to the end, it's going to come back and generate a different one, right? That was so quick. We can't even tell. And it's just going to keep generating forever and ever and ever. Let me just reset real quick and see if you can follow along a little bit. Right, see? It's just generating. It gets to the end, it goes back to the start, and then generates again. Cool, right? But this is just like generating forever and ever. Now we need to put a stop to it. We need to tell it like, man, it is enough. Enough is enough. No more blocks. I'm tired of blocks. And to do that, we go like this. We copy paste this and we tell it if y is greater than variable size y, meaning we went down 20 rows because this is 20, right? This one. We went down 20 rows. Now we're going to set the x to -1. Oh my God, couldn't click it. There you go. To -1. And then I clicked it twice. Good job. And we're going to change the y. And we're going to set to -1 as well. Because the condition for the world to be generated is this one. If x and y are both greater than 0, right? So they're ones, so they're always greater than 0, so they're generating the world. But when we make them -1, they're no longer greater than 0. So they stop creating stuff. When we get to row 20, now it's going to stop generating. I don't know how many we're at, but give it a moment. There we go. See? It got to row 20, and here, when it gets to x20, it jumps down, right? So we made a 20 by 20 square. How cool is that? So this is our world, right? This big red thing, this is our world, even though it's small. So how do you make procedural generation? Like, how do you turn this into an actual game? Well, let me give you the example of why noise is a thing, right? Why do you need it? So here where we create the object, we're going to add opacity. And then we're going to select the object to be tile. And we're going to set the opacity of tile to random in range. Random in range. And then the opacity in GDevelop goes from 0 to 255, right? So we're going to put it there. You don't have to put it. I'm just going to show you the example. So this is going to change the opacity. It's going to basically generate a world for us, right? But it's going to be 100% random. It's going to make no sense whatsoever, right? So check this out. See? It's like you could kind of make something out of this, but it's nuts, right? It's like it makes no sense whatsoever. It's just random, just giving you random values, whatever. You know, there's no consistency. That's what I'm trying to say. For us to see things better, I'm actually going to change the camera a little bit. Give me a moment. At the beginning of the scene, I mistyped that. Please show. There we go. Beginning of the scene. Let's change camera zoom. Camera zoom. And we're going to set the camera to 0.5, right? We're essentially be making everything 32 by 32. Whatever. It's only for now. It's just so you can have a better view, right? So now we can see the randomness a bit better. All right? So this really makes no sense whatsoever. You could make something out of it, but it's still random. So how do you make this better? That's where noise comes in. Noise is going to smooth out all of this stuff. So to introduce noise, we need, well, I need to go down here and we need to go find the thing that we need. Where's the opacity? There we go. Opacity. We need this big thing, right? So instead of random in range, you're going to type in this big mouthful of an equation. That. So we start with extended math map. That's because the noise it brings out it returns a value that's like a decimal value, like a very small number, and the opacity thing only takes I want to say regular numbers because I can't think of the right words, but whole numbers, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It doesn't take like 0.0276, right? It doesn't take those kinds of values. So the extended math is going to break down the whole numbers into smaller numbers, right? Or better yet, it's going to do the opposite. It's going to take the smaller numbers and then it's going to make them into whole numbers. That's what I meant, right? It's the opposite. So you're going to type this whole thing, extended math, noise 2D, because we're using 2 dimensions. I'll get into that sooner. And then this thing where it says right, you can change this for origin. Now, this has nothing to do. You know what? Let's make it engine. This thing that you put here, this is the name of your generator. Think about when you're working with tweens and you need to put a different identifier on each tween. This is it. When you're working with sound channels and you need to put a different channel for each sound, this is the same thing. This is your noise generator. If you create different generators and you put them all with the same name, like if you put this equation on a bunch of different stuff and you always put the name engine, then it's always going to generate the same number, right? So when, for example, our world gets generated from one single point, right? If we want to make our world to be generated both ways, like from 2 points, we need to use 2 different names so that the world doesn't become a mirror. If you use the same name, then it's going to generate to the left the same thing that's generating to the right. And you don't want that. I know that sounds way more complicated than it is. I'm doing a bad job at explaining it. Basically, it's an identifier. Use different names here when using multiple generators. Anyways, then you put the variable x divided by 10 and then the variable y divided by 10. Just copy this. I'll put it down in the description if you want, so you can just more easily copy paste it. Right. So now check this out. When we run this, it's not going to work. Or no, it is working. There we go. How cool is that? Now, do you see the big difference here? Like, it's still random. It's still giving you, like, if we close and open again, like, look at this corner, right? There's a spot there. I'm just wondering, why is it so big? Like, the holes. Did I change something to it? Divided by 10. No, this is fine. No, this is exactly how it's supposed to work. Don't mind me. Anyways, let's go. If we generate again, see? Completely different now. Actually, I'm going to make a reset button so you don't need to constantly close this and open. when key is released, key released, key 1, num1. Oh, for crying out loud. I pressed down. There we go. Num1. Then change scene. Change scene. And it's the only scene we have. There we go. Yep. There we go. That's all we need. So now, as you can tell, every time we generate a world, it's going to be different. And it's actually going to have consistency, right? It's not just random blocks, whatever. It's smooth, right? Let's generate again. Also, just for exemplification, before we close this part, if you want to make your world bigger, let's say the X is 50 and the Y is 20. Like, the Y doesn't need to be 20. Let's leave it. It's fine. So now it's going to take a bit longer to generate. But for example, you can already start picturing it that, you know, you're moving it around. And then you get here and you're like, ooh, I fell down. And then you're like, oh, okay, cool. And then you start playing around. It's like, oh, there's a cave. Let's explore this way, and this way, and this way. Oh, this is cool. I wonder what's on this side. Yeah? How cool is that? See, just here, if we were to remove this part, this would be a game. Right? We'd have a cave. Come here. It's like, woo. Then you fight something, you know, go around. This is your world. I love this stuff. When I discover this stuff, and then you get here and you're like, okay, I want to get to the other side. Then you mine through, and you get here. And you come all the way up, and ta-da. And that's basically what we're going to be doing. We're going to be replacing these tiles for cooler ones that actually make up a world, right? So anyways, enough babbling. If you followed along, then you got this working as well, and you're looking at a cool screen like that, and you're generating a bunch of worlds. I know I did. When I first figured this stuff out, I was just like, ooh, I don't know what else looks like, you know? And it's like, oh, let's go again. You know? Ooh, and again. Wait, is it generating the same one? Why is it generating the same one now? No, it's not. Right? Wait, is it generating the same thing? Why is it stuck on this one? Oh, there we go. We need to reset the actual thing. Oh, I know why. It's because we're not randomizing the seed, right? So we'll do that on the next one. All right. So if we just reset. Okay. So on the next one, we're going to be randomizing the seed, right? I'll teach you how to do that. And we're going to be creating the world. I knew there was something missing. It's fine. Anyways, I hope you had fun. If you followed all the way to the end, subscribe, leave a like, all that jazz. And I'll catch you guys on the next video where we actually start making a game out of this stuff. All right? Anyways, till then, I hope you have a good time. Peace out.